Hello everybody, and welcome to the Jumpstart interview. I am your host, Megapieman, and with me today I have the developer of Ghost of a Tale, Lionel Gallat. If I'm saying your name correctly, I apologize if I'm saying it wrong.
That's okay. Hello.
So, why don't you tell us about just what Ghost of a Tale is?
Sure. So Ghost of the Tale is the game that I'm developing right now. I'm working on it on my own so far, which is, as you can imagine, a lot of work. Yes, it's the story of a little mouse. So as the player, you play this little mouse that gets to this island, and you discover that the island is haunted by those undead skeletal rats that look like giants compared to your little mouse self, and you're going to try and get to the top of the island of the Tower of Periclave, which is located quite a few ways away, and you're going to try and make it alive, which is should be difficult because you're not going to be able to fight your way out of most situations. It's going to be not focused on combat at all, but more on the stealth mechanics, and trying not to attract attention, and really playing up to the fact that you are a little mouse and that you are not going to be able to wield a huge sword, and slice through 50 enemies at once. That's not going to be this kind of game at all. It's
Right.
really going to be about exploration and looking for secrets and puzzles and stuff like that.
Right. And that's something that I specifically saw in the trailer that you released and that I wanted to talk to you about. Because in the trailer that you released, it looked more like it was about evading enemies and actually defeating enemies. Because for most of it, you didn't have a weapon, and then when you eventually did get a weapon, I think it was a branch, so you couldn't really
Yeah,
defend or attack yourself or attack in any way when your enemies have like axes and swords and that sort of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah. That's correct. I mean, it was an attempt to let play a little bit of a melee combat, but without giving you too much power. So yes, I mean, for the most part, the branch was kind of ineffective, against those rats. But yeah, I'm not sure yet, how this is going to remain in the game or not. But as I was telling you, I'm really inclined to actually go away from those kind of combats, melee combats. So it's going to be more stuff, maybe ranged confrontation or indirect confrontation. You're going to have to find some ways
Right.
to maybe lure the enemy into a trap, or it's not like a physical thing because you don't have the strength to really fight them this way.
So it's going to be less of a sort of to compare it to something that a lot of people know. It's going to be less of a Zelda kind of game where you're constantly upgrading the weapons you have and getting new tools to deal out damage. It's going to be more about getting more tools to move around things instead of through them.
Yes, exactly. It's going to really be a way of, uh, making it alive. Basically, finding your way, going past, obstacles, and which can be physical, like big rocks, blocking the way, or
Right.
or doors, of course, that you have to open. But also, yes, enemies, which can kill you in like one or two blows. So you really have to find a way to avoid confrontation, to really, avoid being in a situation where you have to fight directly, which is a fight that you cannot win. So yes, that's going to be more like that, rather
Right.
than Zelda, where it's more about finding weapons and ways to dispatch the enemies. Yeah, yeah.
It's taking sort of more like survival horror elements a little bit.
A little bit more, yeah. I think yes. I think that's right. Yeah.
So, Ghost of a Tale is, I believe, the first game you're working on, but you've done other things prior. I believe I was reading on the IndieGoGo page for Ghost of a Tale that you've worked in animation.
Yes, that's correct. I started as an animator. It was a long time ago now, but I started working at DreamWorks, on their very first movie, which was called The Prince of Egypt, and it was at a time where actually, we used to draw movies. It was those were 2D movies, drawn
Yeah.
movies. It was before they became CG movies. Uh, there was CG at the time, but it was limited to background characters and stuff like that. So yeah, I started there. I worked on the road to El Dorado, and then there was Spirits also, story of a horse. Then there was and then there was also Shark Tale and stuff like that. But then I, very recently, I became the animation director on Despicable Me, which was for Universal this time.
Hmm.
Then there was also the Lorax adaptation. But yes, I mean, my background is really in the animated movie business. So so you're right. Yes, it's the first time that I'm trying to do something like this, and it took me quite some time to be convinced myself that I could do it, because as you know, developing a game is not an easy thing, really.
Right. It
It's
takes a lot of different skills.
Yes, yes, exactly. But where I'm kind of lucky is that the kind of game that I'm trying to do requires actually the same kind of skills, if you will, that you use on making a movie, which is the case anyway for a lot of video games nowadays. The crews, the teams are really very close to the teams that you have in the
Right.
movie
Right.
side. It requires I mean, it's the same software, same tools. Yeah, I mean, for me, it wasn't that far-fetched, to try and do something like this. It would be different if I was trying to do something much more conceptual, like
Hmm.
in 2D, and with special kinds of graphics. But what I'm doing now is something that's very close to what I'm used to do when I work on movies. So that's
It's pretty cool hearing that hearing you talk about that you worked on these movies that when I was younger I've actually seen, and it's just I just personally think it's pretty cool to actually meet someone who's worked on that kind of stuff. But to take from what you were saying about that, I want to stress the fact that everything that has been made in the game so far, you've made yourself.
Yes, that's correct. That's a bit crazy, right?
I know it's pretty crazy considering the stuff that was showing off in the trailer and the pictures on the Indiegogo page. And I'm going to be having the high res pictures that you sent me. They're going to be playing on like a slideshow in the background, so people watch the video has something to look at.
That's cool.
Um, I believe you said that you did everything except the music in the trailer. Think that
Yes,
was credited to somebody else.
yes. That's Jeremiah, Jeremiah Pena, who did the music, and I feel really so lucky, to have found him. I mean, actually, he found me, because he contacted me after seeing some screenshots that I posted on the Unity forums. And he just said, yeah, I would like to work, on the game because I really like the thing. And several people at that time had contacted me already, offering, the help about the music
Right.
for to write the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that, up to this point, I wasn't really convinced, by what I was listening to. And then, I just listened to Jeremiah's portfolio online, and I was really, really stricken by the quality. What it, I mean, I think he's still fairly young, but I mean, I really what I heard really convinced me that he was, really something special,
Right.
and that I really wanted to work with him. So actually, what we did is that I worked. I did the trailer that you saw. I edited it on one of his musics, but which was not at all related to Ghost of a Tale. It was a
Oh,
composition that
it was a separate song. You
exact
just edited it around it because
exact
it sounds it's amazing that he found you because his music and your project they sound like they were made for each other. They sound really good together.
that's exactly what I think. So actually, what we did is that I did the editing and everything recording the video and trying to find the rhythm of the trailer based on this soundtrack that he wrote. But then I was thinking, yeah, man, I think it works, it's okay. But then he listened to it because I sent him, the video with the temp track, if you will,
Right.
and he told me, well, yeah, I think I can do something, really much better, much more appropriate, for the game. And then I said, oh well, please, you, go ahead, and do it. And very quickly he just came back with the music that you hear, in the trailer. I mean, I didn't have, really any notes or anything.
Hmm.
I thought that he really captured the mood, the ambience, the atmosphere, of the game. So I'm very happy, about his work and to be able to work with him. That's great.
Yeah, the two really seem to work together. Now, you mentioned earlier about the Unity forums. Now, the game is made in the Unity engine. I have to ask, why specifically Unity over something like Unreal or another free engine like the Source engine?
Well, that's a good question. Earlier I was telling you that I was working on it for quite a while. I worked on the project uh, full time for a year or something like this, and I was working with a different engine, which was amazing, visually and really an excellent engine.
Right.
But the thing is, I'm not a professional programmer.
Hmm.
I can't program in C++, and then compile everything and make sure that everything works. It's just beyond my skills, my ability. And so I thought that, okay, well, to develop a video game, it's difficult, and you need to go through that. And if I can't do it, well, it means that I can't do it and I have to give up. But then I moved on, to Unity, and and yes, when I discovered, what Unity could do, and although it has a reputation, of being an engine that you use for maybe some more, casual gaming or
Right.
not so impressive visually, I discovered that this was wrong. It was at the time where Unity started to implement DirectX 11,
Hmm.
all the features, like depth of field and all this stuff, that you usually find in AAA engines. And yeah, and when I understood that, I really went ahead and said, that's exactly what I need, because then the trailer that you saw, I put together everything from scratch, starting in Unity in about 2 months. That's all that it took me to also to learn the C sharp language that Unity uses, which is very close. I mean, in my mind at least, it's very close to Python as a
Right.
language. And since I knew Python already before, it wasn't that hard, for me to learn that language. And uh, and really, I'm sure you already heard that very often, but Unity is very simple to develop with.
Yeah,
It's
I've been hearing that a lot. I've been hearing and seeing a lot of people sort of move over to Unity and seeing that it's not kind of like it's just program for people who don't really know what they're doing. That it can actually be used to make some really good content.
Oh yes, 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 yes. I wasn't, sure of that myself, but when I tried and when I looked more into it, and I found out, for example, their animation module, which is called Mechanim, uh, that gives you so much freedom as an animator. It was very important for me to be able to really tweak, transitions and stuff like that. And by the way, what you see in the trailer is really not at the level that the animation is today. I mean, today I learned, so much more
Hmm.
about Unity and all those transitions, and it feels much more natural, much more fluid in the animation today. So yeah, that's for me, Mechanim, the animation module was really a big part that really sold me on the idea of using Unity. And then the ease of use, the I would say also the elegance, in the interface. It's obvious that this is a software that's made to help you,
Right.
to adapt to your needs and to what you want to do, and not the other way around. So that's cool, I think.
So that's pretty cool that you were able to figure that out in 2 months. I have to say that's pretty impressive. Even if you were working to just to find a whole new engine and all of that kind of stuff, and the fact that you've done so much by yourself is impressive alone.
It's
I'm just beside myself when I found that out because I find that amazing for the quality of the screenshots and the trailer and stuff I saw, and you saying that it's even better as it is now is it's pretty
yeah.
impressive.
Okay, well, I'm glad you like it. That's cool.
So I want to take a side note here and talk about the Indiegogo campaign specifically. Like, why did you pick Indiegogo as opposed to Kickstarter or finding a publisher? And how much do you hope to raise to make your game a full title?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's no secret that, well, actually, I don't know if it's a well-known fact, but outside the US and the UK, you know that I mean, you cannot use Kickstarter services if you're not an American citizen or a British citizen, or if your company is kind of registered, or you have a way basically to have a legal existence on the ground, in the country of US or UK. So I'm, of course, I mean, as you can hear, I'm French, so I
Right.
don't, I couldn't do that anyway.
I
And so,
actually didn't know that, so I find that interesting to
ah,
learn. Which,
okay, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's I know that a lot of people wrote me and told me "Oh, why don't you do Kickstarter and all that stuff," and I just said well, I could, even if I wanted, I couldn't do it anyway. But then I have to say that with the Indiegogo campaign, I got in touch with the people who really work at in Indiegogo, and they've been really very helpful to me. So that's, and for example, we were talking about the fact that they accepted to extend the campaign,
yeah.
for about 1 week, which is really unexpected. I mean, I feel again so lucky that they accepted to do that. So I'm at this point, I realize, that everybody is saying, about Kickstarter and Indiegogo, but anyway, for me, that wasn't really a question. So I chose to go this way, and I have good hopes that the campaign will be able to succeed.
Well, so far the campaign seems to be going pretty well. I think the last time I checked it, you had raised around $22,000. That's around maybe half of what how much you want to raise altogether. How much is it that you are looking to raise altogether exactly?
The goal is set at 45,000. And right now, I can tell you, actually, I can have a quick look. I think it's at 27, a bit more than 27 right now. So,
So it's doing pretty well.
yeah, it's doing pretty well. It's coming close to the two-thirds, of the goal. So that's good. I'm pretty happy about that. That so many people, were willing to pitch in, and just because they believe in the project. Even though, again, I explained it very clearly that this is my first game. I'm doing my best. That's for sure. But it's difficult, and I'm learning, and I'm trying, to do stuff. Despite that, it's very humbling, I think, to see so many people, believing in the project, and they say, yeah, I'd really like to see this stuff coming to fruition. So that's cool.
From what I saw on the Indiegogo page, that was the pictures that I saw on there. It reminded me of a couple of things. Some of the art design reminded me a little bit of a game like Alice Madness Returns, or I know you listed a couple inspirations behind the design of the game on the page. Would you mind going over some of the inspirations behind the game as to why you specifically chose the specific character design, like making them all animals, why it shows how things look and that kind of.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I never even wondered about it, but yes, it's true that the main characters are all animals. There's no human beings in the game, and well, it's probably because I'm being influenced by everything I worked on, or when I learned animation, which was in a school in Paris called Les Gobelins, which is a very good animation school. and I just watch, all the old Disney movies, that I also saw some of them when I was a kid, of course,
Hmm.
and so to me, when you put it together with some stuff that I really liked, like the Red Wall series, by Brian Jack,
Right.
um, which I also really like. But there's so many works of art, that exploit this theme of using personified animals. That really, for me, I mean, it wasn't even a question. But then you were asking about the games that are an influence, and yes, I'm quoting. I think I have the pages in front of me. I'm mentioning the Gothic games. It's a game series. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Gothic and Reason. Do
They
you?
don't sound familiar to me.
It's made by a company, I think, which is called Piranha Bytes, if I'm not mistaken. It's a German company, so I know it's very big in Europe. It's the kind of role-playing game that is kind of hardcore, I think you would say.
Hmm.
Maybe a little bit like The Witcher, maybe, this kind of
Right.
stuff. And it's just that I enjoyed so much playing those games that I was influenced in the design of the game by Gothic and Reason, and yes, of course, I also mentioned Ico, which is the Japanese game by the same author who did Shadow of the Colossus, um,
Right.
and that's yeah, for me those games were very very impressive in terms of mood, ambience, you know and we're thinking also about Dark Souls, but even though the game is going it's not going to be anything like Dark Souls. I just want to make it really clear,
Hmm.
because Dark Souls is very much about the combat and getting better gears and
Right.
and becoming stronger to be more resistant. That's not, again. I mean, I think that's clear. That's not going to be the point of Ghost of a Tale. But there's also movies that were really influences for me, and I'm talking about the Dark Crystal. Which did you see the movie The Dark Crystal?
I'm sorry, but I don't think I
It's
have seen that one.
it's a movie by Jim Henson and Frank Oz, I think. Well, it's an older movie. It's all puppets. There are no real actors, real human beings that you see in the movie. And
Hmm.
for me, that was when I saw it as a kid, it was really an experience because you could believe in what you saw on screen, even knowing that nothing was real.
Right.
So it was a little bit like animation, like the CG movies that you see nowadays,
Right.
but except that it was shot, for real, in front of the camera,
Hmm.
uh, and it was so coherent and so genuine, so sincere as a world, that when I saw that, I went, well, that's what I love, because when you're thrown in a world like this, which is what Dark Souls does, and other games like this, it's just honest about the fact that you're thrust into this world and you have to figure out, yourself, how to survive, what you're going to do. It's something that feels consistent, coherent with itself, and that's what really attracted me in those games.
So you're trying to make a really consistent, immersive experience.
Yes, yes. While at the same time keeping things fairly modest,
Right.
because again, I'm not, I don't have a team, and those kind of games that we're talking about, they're made by huge teams, for
Yeah.
many years and a lot of money, to as a budget. So obviously, that's not at all the case with Ghost of a Tale. So I'm not. I'm trying not to bite more than I can chew. It's
Hmm.
very easy to become too ambitious, and as a result to not to manage to do anything. And I'm very aware of this pitfall, and I'm really trying to do as much as I can, but staying reasonable in the sense that it's obvious that the game is not going to be the same in scope as games like the one we're talking about, or even Skyrim, of course. games like that. It's going to be fairly linear in terms of story. I mean, the fact that you're playing the mouse and you're not playing any other character, it's not like you can create your avatar, and suddenly you do whatever you want. Maybe for another game, who knows? That could happen. But in that case, no, it's really you have to accept the fact that you're going to care about this little mouse
Right.
and what's happening to him and the creatures is going to encounter.
It's interesting that you talk about how the limitations of where you're at with being an indie developer. There is that fine line that you always have to be afraid of crossing with. Oh, well, this could be a good idea, but if we go for this, we might not be able to actually do this.
Yes,
And you'd rather
yes,
have a really good shortened game than something that feels unfinished and dragged out.
exactly, exactly. I'm really a believer that something that's kind of more modest and smaller, but really well polished, and really well rounded
Right.
and inviting in a sense. And that's much more enjoyable than something that you see really ambitious, very big, but not very well finished or very well rounded. So I'm definitely trying to go towards the first case of something that's more modest, even though I don't want it to feel like a corridor or anything like this, obviously. So there's going to be a fair amount of choices in the sense of where do you want to go and what do you want to discover. But it's not going to be something epic. It cannot be. I'm going to try and make it as big as I can again,
Mhm.
but it cannot compare to those other games.
Right. And it wouldn't necessarily be fair to try to compare it to other games like that either.
Probably, but also that it's something that's very natural for anyone.
Right.
The problem is also that when you look at the trailer, it looks a little bit like those games. It looks maybe a little bit bigger than what it is in
Hmm.
reality, and that's kind of a bit tricky because I don't want you to set up expectations that are really too big and that are going to be disappointed by when you're going to discover that no, it's not Skyrim. Oh, but it looks a little bit no, it's nothing to do with that. So that's why I'm really trying to make it very clear and to have the message come across that it's just done by one guy, and so I'm really doing my best, but it's going to have to be smaller than those other games.
Right. So you mentioned that the game is, of course, it's very obviously a 3D game, and I get sort of maybe like a 3D platformer feel of what I got, what I've seen of it. Is it more of a platform game or kind of like an action game? What?
Um, I would say yes. I mean, I can see the platforming aspect. It's true. I mean, you're gonna hopefully the character is very quick on his feet, so you can jump around. You can avoid stuff, and you
Mhm.
can sometimes you can run fast. Like on all fours. When you really run very fast. So yes, there is a part of action, of course, obviously, yes. Uh, but the thing that's not shown in the trailer again is the more the well, first story wise, you don't see anything in the trailer,
Right.
and also gameplay wise, you don't see anything about puzzles or stealth or avoiding stuff. It's but again, I put this trailer very quickly together, and because I wanted to show how it can look,
Hmm.
how it can be in the end. But obviously, I knew at this point that it was not possible to convey all the ideas that I had in mind in
Right.
this little trailer. So that's the name of the game.
So what are your feelings on how indie games have kind of come into their own kind? I would say that at this time in gaming, indie games are at points more sought after than AAA titles. I would have to say.
I agree with you. I think I'm very happy to see that, to see this current of independent games which are made really without any big budget, which is well more or less the definition, of an independent game. But also it means that the people making it are not, do not have to please an editor or someone else, a big studio. So
Right.
that gives them, of course, a lot of freedom. So yes, that's what I like to see. All those different streaks, and people putting out stuff that is sometimes, in terms of quality, very close to what you have, in AAA games,
Mm-hmm.
and games that are very expensive, both to make, to create, and to sell. So yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, for example, I played a lot, Legend of Grimrock. I don't know if you heard of it.
Right. I have heard of that one.
It's kind of a dungeon crawler. It goes back, to the days of Dungeon Master and all those games
Mm-hmm.
on Atari and Amiga. And yeah, and I'm thinking also about Journey, of course, and Limbo. But I mean, I'm not a specialist, of all this. I mean, I'm not a big gamer, but I do know those games, and I've played, some of those,
Right.
and so yes, I think that's really great, and it's going to be interesting to see how this evolves, because now you have big companies that are trying to do games that look more and more impressive visually.
Mm-hmm.
And I was mentioning the fact that the teams needed to create those games are almost like the teams that you need to create a movie, a
Right.
Hollywood blockbuster movie. So it costs a lot of money, and there is a kind of a race to photorealism. And so if you do that visually, I mean, as a just a screenshot, you watch it and you say, oh, it looks like a picture, okay. But then you need to get the animation on the same level,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes a lot of work, a lot of knowledge, of talent, of money, time, to do all this stuff. So I don't know how long they're going to be able to maintain it, knowing that on the side, as you were saying, you have indie games that cost much less, to buy. I mean, most of them, they're like $10, $15, something like that. But you get a lot of quality, a lot of personality, and so yeah, I mean, the difference used to be, up to a certain point, up to fairly recently maybe, that independent games were not able to touch the big audience, the big
Right.
masses. And this is different now, because, when you have a PlayStation 3, 360, you can play those games on your console. So this big divide that was created by the fact that independent developers could not reach many people has disappeared. So that's it's going to be interesting to see how the two mix, maybe, or if they remain really separated. I don't know.
Yeah, it used to be that you would want to stick with more of your AAA titles because those would be more of the quality titles, whereas indie games would kind of be a crude idea. But it's really developed thanks to things like IndieGoGo, Kickstarter, Desura, and
Yes.
just the internet in general. It's really involved that indie games that usually focus more on story and gameplay can do a lot more than the AAA games that are like you mentioned, they're doing the best they can to try to look as real as possible. I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing to go for because games don't have to look real, so I don't necessarily know why they put so much effort into having to look real. I can understand it to a point, but you're making a game, not a movie.
Yeah. No, no, I agree. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to evolve. But also, to your point, you were mentioning also the AAA games who used to be at least more polished and
Mm-hmm.
more refined from a technical point of view. Sometimes I don't know what you think, but I had the feeling sometimes that when I was playing some of those more recent games, big, AAA games, sometimes I could see a lot of bugs,
Yeah.
a lot of problems of stuff that really literally they take 5 to 10 minutes of playtime to discover, to see.
Like
So
you mentioned Skyrim earlier, and just the Elder Scrolls and Bethesda in general is a company that's kind of got to the point that people kind of expect there to be bugs in their games,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
you can understand it to a point because of the kind of games that they are making. But still, when you think about it, back in the day with like the PlayStation 1 console, when you released a game, that was it. You couldn't
yeah.
patch it or anything. So if it wasn't perfect when it went out the door, it wasn't going to be perfect.
Exactly, and that has really changed, and that's why, yeah, when you play those AAA games and you see all those weird stuff, glitches, mistakes, and you really, when you see that after playing for 5 or 10 minutes, you really know that the people at the studio saw that, and the heads of the studio said, okay, we don't care, doesn't matter, doesn't break the game, ship it. That's
Yeah.
just not good. It's not a good signal. I understand that those studios are so big and they have so much money, and they need to be accountable to whoever, the investors, or so they need to release the games in time. But
Hmm.
sometimes you lose a lot in terms of polish and care about the final game, and personality sometimes. But sometimes, that can be good. For example, I'm thinking of Dishonored, the game by, I think it's Arcane Studio. That
Yes, yes,
uh,
I've recently finished that game. That was a really really good game.
okay, yes, yes, yeah, yeah. I was very impressed because you can really feel that it's a well-made game, in the sense that it's trying to pull you into the world,
Hmm.
and really trying to make you happy as a player. And just a detail, which is very important for me. But I have a tendency of getting motion sickness, when I play games.
Hmm.
If there is too much, head bobbing, from side to side, and they have, within the game, an option to, calm down the side to side camera movement and all this stuff, and that really means that they have played their games, and they have seen that sometimes, people who have problem, with motion sickness, it was not a good experience for them, and
Right.
it didn't take, a lot for them to put a slider to just, move up or down the amount of accessory movement, but it's an indication that they thought about it and they cared, you know.
Right.
So yeah, so I really enjoyed that.
That's something that's always nice to see. And it was also nice to hear a little while ago that Dishonored is now a going to be a franchise. It's nice to hear because I really enjoyed Dishonored. It's also kind of not nice to hear because it's what sometimes happens to franchises. They kind of go under, but it's something that we'll have to see with games like that.
Yeah,
But that is definitely a game that it's got a kind of polish that it's rare to see from a AAA title, and it's kind of hard to say that considering the AAA titles they put their games out for usually depending upon what publisher it is, $60 across the board, no matter if you get it for your PC or your Xbox or PS3 or anything like that. Whereas indie games that can have a lot of polish and a lot of time, they can also have their own issues, but they're a lot cheaper and you can get a lot more out of just what you're playing.
yeah, and usually you also get a lot of support,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that the teams, the developers really try to patch, all the mistakes, all the bugs as soon
Mm-hmm.
as possible. So yeah, because I think they also feel much more accountable to their players, you know,
Right.
because very often they have a community, people who, pitched in some money, for the game to be made. So it's much more conscientious, as a, workflow. Whereas when you think of, EA, or big publishers, they're so huge that they don't really care. I mean, it doesn't really matter for them, if you have a
Mm-hmm.
big bunch, a big group of players who are really unhappy about some aspects of the game. That, I understand. I mean, it's very different, but I think that's why also indie games tend to be sometimes better. It's because they really, the programmers have really put their heart into the games, and they want to see them be, as good as they can. So well, anyway, I think that's probably the case.
Yeah. So going back to Ghost of a Tale for a moment, do you have any plans for like a demo or a beta or some sort of prototype to release to the public anytime soon? Any plans like that, or is the game still too early in development to give out any sort of dates or any ideas about that kind of thing?
Well, it is really early in development. That's for sure. But I really want to be able to do a demo. Something that people will be able to try,
Mm-hmm.
which will be probably fairly short. But no, I really want to do that. It's not, I'm not in a situation where I just want to, I'm just doing my game and that's it. It's not that at all. So I'm very interested in feedback, and people looking at it and trying it, having suggestions, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very, very important. Again, I come from the movie business, and when you work on a movie, you don't work alone. You really work with people. Everybody, has an idea, an
Mm-hmm.
opinion. You need to, sometimes, please too many people. I mean, the kind of the too many cooks in the kitchen spoil the soup. I think that's the expression.
Right.
Yeah, but here I'm kind of the opposite situation. So working alone for now, again on the game. If the campaign can be successful, I hope I can hire, maybe a couple of people, to really help me work on the game. But yeah, so that's what I'm trying to do to be able to show the game as early as I can, but not just to show the look, it's moving, oh, it's pretty animations. No,
Right.
I mean, I had to do that, for the first time because that was the first step.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm going to try and wait to have something that really makes more sense in terms of gameplay before I show something again. But yes, to your question, I want to be able to release a demo so that people can try it and just see if the game runs fine on their machines and I mean basic stuff like that because obviously I'm trying to push Unity from a graphical point of view,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm really trying to milk the engine as much as I can. Because I like the beautiful visuals and I'm trying to create that. Uh, but I'm also aware that maybe not everybody has powerful machine.
Mm-hmm.
So people need to be able to see for themselves, if it's going to work for them.
Right. Optimization is a big key when you go to pushing graphics. I myself have an older machine, so I can't run everything always at the top
Yeah,
bar. So it's nice when when developers put detail not only into just making the best graphics look great, but also making the medium quality and stuff still look pretty good too.
yes,
It's
yes.
still probably way too early to talk about like a price point or release platforms that you're thinking of. But do you have any ideas for those kind of things as of yet?
For now, I'm thinking of definitely putting the game on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
I've already, put out a page for the game, which is climbing, slowly on green light on the concepts section.
Right.
It's climbing up, and it's now it's really on the first page, and then it's moving up. So it means that more people get to see it and to say that maybe they'd like to see the game be finished. So, but beyond that, yes, I would also like to be able to release the game on Macintosh, on Macs, on OS 10.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and again, thanks to Unity, the fact that Unity is supposed, to support a wide range of systems, I should be able to release a Ghost of a Tale on quite a few consoles even. So I'm thinking right now, obviously, uh, about all the big, I mean, the usual suspects,
Right.
PlayStation 3 and 360. I mean, although everything is moving right now because, of course, they're announcing the new models,
Mm-hmm.
the PlayStation 4 and next Xbox. Some people have asked me about Wii U as well. and Vita. They've been quite vocal actually on the forums,
Hmm.
and it's I would like to be able to do that. I mean, I have no desire whatsoever to do something that's exclusive to one system.
Right.
I don't. I mean, I don't have. I don't. You know, I don't have any need for that. I'm not looking for that. So yes, if it's possible, and if after a lot of the optimization, the game can run on some, of those other platforms, I'd be more than happy, to release on that. But it's just that so far on the page of the campaign, I do not want to promise anything that I'm not sure
Right.
to happen.
Right. That can
Because
be greatly understandable, especially with the whole new console cycle coming in. The
yeah,
fact that the Wii U may not be the easiest thing to try to work with, especially someone in your position with it being their first game that they're working on, unless you have someone specifically who works with that, and that
yeah,
can be very understandable.
yeah. So that's why I'm trying to remain, just not to talk too much about those kind of things because I'm just not sure. I mean, I'm talking about stuff that I know. I know PC. I don't have a Mac, but I mean, I guess it's fairly close. And so yes, and I've implemented also recently the controls for a gamepad. I mean, it seems silly, maybe to you or your listeners, but yeah, I mean, when I played the demo, what you see in the trailer, it was just keyboard and mouse. But then so many people said, oh, but you should implement gamepad support and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I did now. So it means that now you can really play the game with a gamepad. So why not put it on the console? So
Right.
yeah.
Right. I can have a see what you're getting at there. Well, all of the links to the Indiegogo page, to the trailers that you've released, will be in the description of the video that people are currently watching. Thank you, Lionel, for joining me for this interview, the first Jumpstart interview. Thank you very much for agreeing to this and joining me for this. Um,
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I mean, that's great. I appreciate it a lot, really. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. Any chance I get to promote this game, I will. I've already tweeted it out and posted it on my Facebook, and I think I even gave it a one up on Google Plus, whatever they call that, just because I think it's a really cool idea. I like how you're focusing on story elements and just it seems like a different kind of game that I either haven't played or haven't played in a while and would like to play.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you very much, for your kind words. I mean, it's really it means a lot to me. That's cool.
So if you don't have anything else specific that you want to mention or that you want to talk about, I
No,
guess maybe plug your forums. You said you have Ghost of a Tale does have a forum page.
it doesn't have a forum per se right now because all the updates, I put on the campaign page on
Mm-hmm.
Indiegogo. But yes, I'm working, right now on finding a way to get a forum so that people can really react and communicate about the game on those forums. But in that case, I will put that on my website, which is seithcg.com. That's where I'll put the updates after the campaign is done.
All right, and there will be a link to that in the description as well. Thank you again for joining me, and if that is all you have to say, then that will be it for this Jumpstart. My name has been MegapieMan, and I will talk to you guys later.